Chapter 13, Slavery in the Old South from 1800 to 1860, by Tammy Chanthorne, Valerie Moa, and Samantha Montez. Because the Lower South's reliance on the cotton crops, they began to switch on to more profitable cotton crops, such as the short staple cotton crop, and the need for more slavery to fulfill the supply and demand for cotton, thus making slaves as profitable as well. The short staple cotton is planted further inland, and it has less investment in machinery and drainage, which means there's better production for it. Long staple cotton is limited to humid areas and tidal flats off of coasts. They also require a lot of investments in machinery and drainage. The War of 1812 impacted the spread of slavery because after war, many moved westward for fertile lands, and thus they bought slaves to cultivate land and tend crops. In the end, slaves made up 90% of cotton production. The South crops were cash crops with at least 20 slaves, and they had more money for plantation owners. There was also the gang system, which was the organization and supervision of the slave field hands into working teams supervised by white overseers and black drivers. Diversification in the South were target urban market with many types of crops and livestock. There were also wheat, corn, and garden veggies. Urban slaves were artisans, semi-skilled laborers, and domestics. They lived apart from their owners and had more freedom. They experimented with various social roles, and they had marketable skill. The planters didn't like urbanization and industrialization because they undermined slavery by social change. Slaves as workers also threatened slave discipline, and less than 5% of slaves worked in manufacturing. The Upper South was pretty much a land depleted of soil exhaustion and wasteful farming. Land and crop prices also fell. There were slave codes, and these were laws defining the status, slaves, and the rights of owners. Slaves can't own property, guns, or alcohol. They cannot make contract, legally marry, leave plantation without permission, testify against owner or white person, and they also cannot legally murder. Slave families were crucial. Slaveholders encouraged it to help morale in the workforce and to produce marketable children. Slaves viewed their family as one, and people viewed them as commodities. About 1/3 of slave marriages were broken by sales or removals. West African religion plus Christianity turned into African Christianity. They named children after deceased grandparents and danced to music and told folklore. But more than 20% converted to Christian, and many converted to Baptist. They also held own services to meet needs. Gabriel Prosper's rebellion involved 50 armed slaves near Richmond. They failed to seize a road to Richmond, and a warning from white authorities ended the rebellion before it started. Denmark Vesey's conspiracy of 1822 drew slaves into Haiti. It also had domestic servants who spilled a secret, which meant Vesey plus 34 hanged, banned 37. They also destroyed churches and passed Negro Seamen's Act. Nat Turner's rebellion of August 1831, Turner killed Joseph Travis, who was also a lenient owner, and 60 other men. The posse captured and/or killed Turney's party. They hid but were caught and executed with 130 others. They easily suppressed because locals were watching. There was the Underground Railroad, which included Quakers and black and white anti-slavery activists, and many were given up on or tracked down. There was also the passive resistance, which malingered at work and broke tools and harmed animals. The plantation mistresses supervised slaves and ran plantation while watching children. They managed household and oversaw cooking. They also worked harder than their husbands and hated work but loved status. Human farmers' cooperation with planters, they protected people's rights from outside forces. There was also black denigration and overseers on plantation. The pro-slavery argument were the institution by God for carrying institution, Turner's uprising, showing slavery was present in Bibles, whites were paternal fathers and slaves were their children, blacks unfit for freedom among whites, and there was also racism.